Nice your sister showed up.
All right, 5 seconds, folks.
Terrible.
All right, you are tuned into WSLR LP 96.5 FM in Sarasota and WBP 100.1 FM in Bradenton. The opinions expressed on this show are those of the guests and do not necessarily reflect those of WSLR, its staff, or volunteers. We're broadcasting live from the Fogartyville stage. It's an hour of analysis and debate of the events and issues that Sarasota is talking about. This is Talk the Town.
The local real estate market headed for a full-on crash? Also, what, if anything, is being done to mitigate against flooding as this year's hurricane season approaches? Plus, what's the latest on the convoluted search for a new City of Sarasota manager? All this and more on today's Talk of the Town, a WSLR News Roundtable. Good morning. We're coming to you live from the Fogartyville Community Media and Arts Center in front of a live audience. Welcome to the inaugural edition of Talk of the Town. I'm your host, Carrie Seidman, and I'm joined this week by Florida Gulf Coast University economist and real estate analyst, Dr. Shelton Weeks.
Thank you.
Sarasota City Commissioner Jen Ahearn-Koch. And Sarasota County Commissioner Mark Smith. We'll be discussing some of the hot topics of the day, and hopefully we'll also be providing you with a little bit of fun. So let's dive right in. And we'll start with Dr. Weeks and the real estate outlook. Although my other panelists will also dive in at any point if they want to share their opinions. Dr. Weeks, 2 years ago, Sarasota was one of the hottest real estate markets in the U.S. Prices surged by double digits between 2020 and 2022, fueled by pandemic migration. But recent statistics cited by the Suncoast Searchlight now show the Sarasota and Manatee market falling faster than almost anywhere else in the country, with a 7% decline over the past year as the national average was 4.5%. Can you tell us what are some of the factors fueling the downturn and what can we expect in the future?
Sure. When we look at this situation, there are really two massive factors that are impacting markets, not just here, but all through the Sunshine State. Number one, and this is one that reaches nationwide, is the higher interest rate environment that we're in today. We continue to hear from national media that this is suddenly a high interest rate environment, when in fact it's actually an interest rate environment that's very much in line with what we've seen historically. The part that's making it challenging for our markets is the fact that we came out of essentially a decade and a half where interest rates were held artificially low as a result of the Fed's operation known as quantitative easing. So now that we're in this higher interest rate environment, it's much harder for folks to finance the same amount of housing that they were buying just a few years ago. So that's factor number one. The other factor, and this is one that I think everybody in the audience here probably has some experience with, and that's the fact that just our cost of owning homes in the Sunshine State has increased dramatically. And you don't have to look further than the insurance bill, whether it's flood insurance or your regular property casualty insurance. Just about everybody that we know has had increases somewhere between 50 and 100% over the last 36 months. And at the end of the day, that eats into the budget that everybody has for housing. So simply put, not only do we have this higher interest rate environment, we also have a higher cost of home ownership, and that's now being reflected in the form of falling prices.
So how about the fact of the storms that we had last year? How much is that impacting current interest in the Florida market?
You know, that's sort of a mixed bag. You know, when we have storms, and I'm from Fort Myers, where Florida Gulf Coast University is located, and we had the experience with Ian back in 2022, so we're a little bit ahead of the folks here locally in terms of recovery, just a little bit. It's been a slow process, but what we saw there was almost all of the folks that were impacted either decided, heck yes, we're going to stay, we're going to tough this out and figure out how to do it. Of course, we didn't have the double hit like this market did. Triple, yes. So when we look at this, it's a challenging situation. A lot of folks would like to stay, but when you start to rebuild and have to rebuild to current code, it's much more expensive. And that does have a downward pressure that it's going to exert on the market.
Do you think it's a negative influence on people moving to Florida?
I think for some it is. You know, I think the negative impact is more on the folks that have been here. You know, even if you went through the storms last year and you weren't impacted, it's taxing. You know, it is hard to see your home and the things that you've worked on damaged like that and have to go through a slow recovery process. And even if you were lucky enough to be further inland or maybe in a high spot, it's hard to see it impacts your neighbors that way. And for some folks, that may prompt them to think about looking in other areas.
Well, I know many of us sitting at the table here were impacted by the storms last year. I was just speaking to Commissioner Ahearn-Koch. Her home was flooded and it's still not totally repaired. I just moved back into my home after 8 months almost out while it was repaired. I happen to live in an older condominium. Can you talk about some of the impact of the condominium market and the new legislation after the Surfside condominium collapse that is making it more expensive for
Absolutely.
condominium
When we
owners?
look at the condo market in Florida, this is something that we've paid a lot of attention to over the last couple of years since we had the collapse of Champlain Towers and then the subsequent legislation that came out. First of all, the market right now, there's a tremendous amount of uncertainty in the condo market. There are a lot of HOAs that have significant bills in front of them, and they're not sure how they're going to handle the new rule in terms of capital adequacy. But at the end of the day, we'll get through all of this, and I think the condo market will end up being much healthier. The problem is the next 24 to 36 months as these HOAs work through that process, it's going to be very challenging, and some folks are going to face significant assessments associated with their condos. And for some condo associations, it may not be economically viable for them to continue. And some of those associations may ultimately face termination.
And that must put a damper on the condo market, interest in buying a condominium here.
Absolutely. And you know, on the west coast of Florida, we do have some older condo stock, but when you look at the housing stock that's held in condominium, the majority of that's on the east coast, and a lot of those are above 3-story units, and they're facing a lot more problems than we are. But when the national media covers our condominium market, things kind of get painted with a broad stroke. And as a result, there's a bit of a spillover effect. You know, when folks are in some terrible place like New Jersey enduring cold weather today, and they're reading about our condo market, they see these stories about things on the East Coast and perhaps think, oh no, I'm not buying a condominium, even if it is a new one that's located on the coast of Southwest Florida that's very resilient and doesn't have any of these issues.
The legislature has been discussing an interesting possibility these past week or two about reducing greatly or eliminating property taxes. What impact might that have on the market? And then if I could, I'd like to turn to the commissioners and say, what impact might that have on your budgets?
Well, I think the last thing you said there is really the key to all this. You know, it's the budget issue. So if we were to eliminate property taxes or greatly reduce them, how do we make up for that budget shortfall? And when you think about moving away from a property tax, you only have a couple of alternatives. You can do a state income tax, which I don't think a lot of folks in the Sunshine State are going to get very excited about that, or you can rely completely on sales tax. With sales tax, you have a whole different set of issues in that they tend to be inherently regressive, and you end up with situations where crossing an artificial boundary, whether it's a municipal city limit or a county line, can take you into a very different tax environment. So you end up with a lot of things that are very difficult to manage if you move to a sales tax replacement. So at the end of the day, my opinion, for what little it's worth, is that while it may be an intriguing concept to kick around, it's going to be a lot harder to actually execute a plan that would eliminate property taxes in the state of Florida.
And Commissioner Smith, what would that mean for the county if they did do something like that?
Well, we just, have to get rid of schools and fire department and the sheriff department. And fortunately, we have a lot of gun owners here in Sarasota County, so it may not be that bad for a while. And homeschooling is popular, and everybody has a garden hose. Other than, in my opinion, being just downright stupid, it's not the thing to do. And they're also looking at offsetting the property tax with the tourist tax, tourist development money, which those of us that have been here a while know that the largest cash crop in Florida is tourism. And to kill that crop by taking the money and taking it from promotions so people, because you have to continue to advertise and you have to continue to upgrade your attractions and maintain them for folks to come down here and continue to spend their money in our property here. It's a fine balance. I think, I'm surprised it's gotten this much traction because there isn't a county or municipal government in the state that can survive without the property taxes. Now, I think we can give property tax relief, like we do now with exemptions for various things, whether it be veterans or age or whatever. So I mean, I'm all for lightening the load of the property taxes on our citizens that have been here for a long time. But you can't get rid of property taxes.
I'm so glad to hear that.
Well, I'm not sure anybody's happy to hear that, but.
What about from a city perspective, Commissioner Ahearn-Koch?
Well, I want to know if you have any direct conversation with the governor so that you can be in his ear to share your thoughts with him, because that would be really valuable.
Well, I will tell you that the Florida Association of Counties, which I'm on the board of, are talking to the governors, and we are lobbying for a little saner approach. Sanity in politics.
It's not popular these days.
Yes, it's usually, kind of polar opposite.
Yeah, no, I have to say that when the idea was, publicized and was out there, I had citizens, when you think about something like this and you would say, no more property taxes, that people would be so excited about it. And that was not my experience. I had citizens come to me and say, I am absolutely not in support of this because I know it would mean the services that I require and request from my city government would no longer happen. So it would get rid of our general fund, basically. And in our general fund, our police department costs $48 million. And this would impact we have $49.5 million, and this is our police department. So it's no exaggeration, we probably wouldn't be able to have a police department. And if you don't have a sheriff,
we're in trouble.
Wild West.
Well, also a public hospital.
Right, exactly.
So, store plenty of Band-Aids, learn first aid, we'll help each other out, it'll all work out.
Let's move on to something hopefully a little more positive. Dr. Weeks, I know you don't have a crystal ball, but what would you say to sellers, to buyers, to developers who have thousands of units in process or approved right now? When can we maybe see this turning around a bit?
That's a great question. So when you think about what it's going to take to really turn things around, the first thing I would point to is consumer confidence. Consumer confidence has taken a really big hit since the first of the year. And Florida's very much like the rest of the country on that. It's hard for folks to make big ticket purchases when they're not feeling good about the economy and the outlook. You look at all the volatility that we've seen in the equity markets, and folks look at their 401ks and stuff. You can't help but do it, and that at the end of the day has a really negative impact on people's outlook. So I would say we've got to get past everything that's going on right now in terms of this just systematic uncertainty in the economy. And then I think things will even out. If you're trying to sell a home today, whether you're an individual or a builder, I think the most realistic thing to do is look at your data that's in the market. There's a market clearing price for homes at any point in time. You've got to decide, do I really want to sell this asset? And what's the realistic price that I can get out there today? Now, as a potential buyer, this could be a great opportunity. When you look at the production builders throughout the state, those companies are basically selling product at zero margin in today's market. They're offering below market interest rates. They're offering tens, if not $100,000+ dollars worth of upgrades. So if you're a buyer, this could be a pretty good opportunity. If you can get past the psychological point of everything that's going on in the markets and pull the trigger, you can get a pretty good deal today. But in terms of timing for things to get better, we've really got to get on the other side of all this uncertainty.
So in other words, don't hold your breath, anyone.
No, and if you
Not
find the
like-
home you really want today, you might be able to get a pretty dang good deal.
Thank you.
Can I just ask something? Because earlier when you were talking about, I'm sorry to interrupt, when you were talking about insurance, I think that is a really important point about our future here in the state of Florida. If you can't get insurance, you can't buy a house or a condo.
Absolutely.
And we're seeing the cancellation rate increase over time. And some folks can't get insurance at all. Some folks can get insurance, but it's $80,000 a year with a $250,000 deductible. This is our reality. So in my opinion, that's what I would like to see us fix and turn around.
Sure. We've made some good progress with the insurance market in Florida, getting providers to come back to the state. We've got a very long way to go.
Absolutely. It would be nice to see the legislature addressing that problem, which we haven't seen so far. You're listening to Talk of the Town on WSLR 96.5, and I'm your host, Carrie Seidman. Sorry, Mark.
No, I was going to say, I thought there was a hope for affordable housing.
Yeah.
Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, absolutely. But we're going to turn to that in another edition of Talk of the Town because that's an enormous topic. Another enormous topic that we're going to look at today is flooding and stormwater management. And Commissioner Smith, I know you are just off a workshop that was devoted to these issues that took place on Wednesday. Can you share with us some of what you heard from county officials about what contributed to last year's flooding and what's being done or has been done so far to present a similar disaster this year?
Well, those of us that lived through the 3 hurricanes, Debbie starting it off, as you're all aware, Debbie was a bit of an unusual storm event in that the tail of the storm was like a train that went over Sarasota County for days, while the eye of the storm actually made landfall in the Big Bend area. And it produced 18 to 20 inches of rain over a couple of days. The rain fell everywhere, as we all know, and as it made its way from the east to the bay, to the west, it became evident that the ditches and creeks and bayous had been silted up over time. Essentially, the maintenance, Sarasota County maintenance on the creek, Philippi Creek in particular, but the bayous and creeks throughout Sarasota County hadn't been maintained to the level necessary.
And let me just,
I'm trying to be polite.
let me just interrupt you here, because anyone who has checked their tax bill recently over the past few years, if you look, you are assessed a fee for stormwater management. And if you check back a few years, you may find, as I did, that your stormwater management fee has doubled or tripled over that time. Where has that money been going?
That's the question that we have for staff. If any of you want to tune in to the latest stormwater workshop, you can go on the Sarasota County website under commission meetings and watch it.
Can I just chime in really quickly?
Sure.
Just so that the folks here know, in the city of Sarasota, the county manages our stormwater. I just wanted to be clear, when everybody's thinking about what he's saying, that they know that the county...
What is this? Not my fault thing. What is this, lady?
We are going to talk about that
haven't
arrangement
even gotten
between
there.
the city and the county. But go ahead, Commissioner Smith, let's let you conclude.
Okay. Anywho, the stormwater fund accumulated $27 million this last year, and has been accumulating that. And back in 2022-23 is when there was a jump in the stormwater rates. What we found in the stormwater workshop is, for instance, $3.9 million of that $27 million went for administrative costs. And my question to staff was, what is that all about? They're getting back to me.
Any particular timeline on that?
Oh, I believe it'll be quicker rather than later. Because I'm not alone. The county commission is unison in their... I've made the comment that I ran for office and I feel like I bought a used car. And I didn't realize it never changed the oil. And that's what it is with the stormwater. Philippi Creek and other conveyance of stormwater haven't been maintained in over 20 years.
What is staff telling you is needed? Do they need more personnel?
They need more money.
They need more money. Of course. But they have more money, which...
Yes, they another $10 million a year. And we could, over 10 years, to clear out everything that hasn't been cleared out.
That should have been done already, in other words.
Well, one would think.
Yeah.
I would think. I mean, these are. It's a process, as you've heard with government. The reason I hesitate here is I'm trying to be somewhat political and keep my temper. But it's. I can assure you that the Sarasota County Commission is going to find out. One of the things we asked is, how is that $27 million being spent, including the 3.9 for administration? I made the comment, I guess I need to know more about how we pay our departments. I thought that would have come out of the general fund, and that all the stormwater money collected would go for stormwater maintenance.
Exactly.
I know it's crazy talk, but and so we're going to look into it. We're not done yet. That was our.
Is it a high priority for the commission?
Oh, baby. high as in high water.
Yeah.
No, I mean, the clock ran out. We got hit last hurricane season. We've got, what, 10 days before the next one? And we got to pray to God that we don't get hit with anything. But we just
Because
had...
we're not in much better shape right now than we were last year. Is that correct?
Much better shape. Percentage-wise, no. No, I mean, we hopefully will get the Corps of Engineers to agree that dredging Philippi Creek is an emergency. We've got the state to agree and the county permitting to agree. But it's crazy. We've been contacting Congressman Stubbe's office to help us with that. But even if we got the darn permit tomorrow,
Right.
we don't have folks lined up.
We'd be into hurricane season well.
You
into
know,
it.
I mean, facetiously, I mentioned to the other county commissioners at our last groundbreaking that maybe we should hang on to these shovels and go over to the Philippi Creek.
Well,
You know, and because, I mean, we should do an emergency dredge right up the middle of Philippi Creek. Now, we have this high spot thing, a nice map with the rectangles around it that was presented to us. Still, nothing's done.
referring to what Commissioner Ahearn-Koch mentioned, you also ran out of time in the workshop
Right.
to discuss a potential termination of the interlocal agreement between the county and the city, as the Commissioner Ahearn-Koch pointed out. Currently, the county manages the city's stormwater management. The county is proposing terminating that. Commissioner Ahearn-Koch, do you want to comment on what
Sure.
that would mean for the city?
Sure, that is a daunting proposal for us. We don't have anything really in place to take over the management of the stormwater system. I believe that the county must have an inventory and know, Whitaker Bayou, Hudson Bayou, the stormwater pipes, which ones are blocked, and backflow preventers, and all of these things that we have to have. But the city would need a comprehensive assessment of what all of that is, what shape it's in. We know the level of service of our citizens and what they expect. We know that the level of service has not been met. We know that the stormwater system has been neglected and not maintained and not kept up to the level that it needs to be. So not only inheriting this new utility, but inheriting a utility that is in really bad shape is not an exciting proposal for the city. We have this agreement, and I believe it's 30 days notice,
Oh, I don't know.
something like that, to terminate the agreement.
Is it that long?
I think it's a very short period of
I
time,
thought it was
maybe
an hour and a
60
half.
days.
I
It might as well be that.
I think it's noon.
Yeah.
Actually, today.
It might as well be that. So it's something that we do need to discuss. We had our first interlocal intergovernmental meeting in 8 years, where it was brought up, and there was really no discussion, and there was no there were no answers. I was disappointed that we really didn't get the opportunity for the county commissioners and the city commissioners to discuss this. So I hope we'll have another meeting very soon where we'll have the opportunity to discuss this, because it's going to be very impactful for
Commissioner
us.
Smith, where did this proposal to terminate
Well,
the agreement come from?
Well, my
From
understanding is in the 80s, the city of Sarasota asked the county to take over stormwater. And that's when the interlocal agreement came to be.
And the reason for that is that stormwater knows no boundaries. Stormwater doesn't say, I'm county water, whoops, now I'm city water, right? I'm not Manatee water, I'm not Sarasota water. Stormwater, stormwater. And it's best when it's managed regionally. And that's the smartest way to do it.
Well, that's an opinion, of course. We don't take care of the city of Venice's stormwater. and the water flows from the east to the west, down south too. I mean, this is a matter of negotiation, and it's not going to be immediate. I mean, it's semi-humorous that the city's saying, please let the county continue, when the county hasn't done a really great job.
That's true.
So.
And then when I asked if the city could have some of the equipment that we've paid for, the answer was?
Well.
It was no.
Well, if you look at the stormwater workshop, we've got another $3.5 million worth of equipment we're going to have to buy to take care of what we have to do. I'm sure we could rent it to you.
Have you heard about this City of St. Pete's new program they have, where they have neighborhoods or citizens volunteering to clean drainage areas? You know, sort of like adopting a median. They're going to adopt a drain. Is there any thought to doing that?
Well, there is a public service announcements that need to be put out in that in your neighborhoods during a storm event, please bring everything in, because we have found trash cans and plywood, you know, after the storms or during the storms, blocking the ditches and the culverts. And then I was told that, well, now that we're trying to get back to normal, everybody bought all these wonderful bags of mulch and putting that back out, and now that's all, you know, with
washing down.
Washing in.
Yeah.
So we got to kind of watch ourselves on the mulch. But, you know, it starts in the neighborhoods and in your yard, so please look at that, because you could be causing some problems. But seriously, the whole stormwater system of Sarasota County has been on borrowed time. Sarasota County hadn't gotten hit with a major storm, I don't think, since 1960 when Debbie hit. Or Donna, excuse me, Donna hit. And we've had a number of what I call drive-by hurricanes, or they've come across the state and have been less intense. We haven't gotten hit like the Panhandle and the Big Bend area. So, and so we get hit with 3 storms. And like I tell folks, that's why they call them a disaster.
So we're living on borrowed time.
We were living on borrowed time before. As an
Yeah.
architect, I was telling folks, you know, my clients, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when we're going to get hit. And our number was called in 24. Will it be called again in 25? It could.
That's the big question. And if we have too much water, in some cases we have too little food. The All Faiths Food Bank, whose mission is to provide healthy solutions to end hunger in our community, has a number of outreach programs badly in need of volunteers. If you're interested, please contact them at allfaithsfoodbank.org or at 941-379-6333. And if you're just joining me, this is Talk of the Town. I'm Carrie Seidman, and my guests today are Florida Gulf Coast University professor Dr. Shelton Weeks, Sarasota City Commissioner Jen Ahearn-Koch, and Sarasota County Commissioner Mark Smith. And unfortunately, we got to move right along, and we're going to turn the subject to the search for a city manager of Sarasota. This is a process that has been going on some time since the former city manager, Marlon Brown, resigned in '24. Recently, the City Commission threw out the process that had been underway and is starting a new process. It was also recently announced that former Sarasota County Deputy Administrator and Longboat Key Town Manager Dave Bullock would step in as the interim in the meantime. Commissioner Ahearn-Koch, can you talk first about why you felt it was necessary? I know you pushed to throw out the old process and start again. Why did you feel that was necessary?
I think it was necessary ultimately because we realized at some point in time, none of the 5 of us, I mean, and folks should know, when you run for office, you're a citizen, you have a job, you have a family, and then you decide to throw your hat in the ring and run for office. And I encourage everyone to do it. It's a wonderful experience. But you're a citizen. And so the 5 citizens that make up our city commission, We had never gone through the process of hiring a city manager before. And so we, like with a lot of things, you find out what is staff recommending us to do. And we went along with that until we realized that the process was dictating to us what we should do, as opposed to us exercising one of our most important responsibilities, which is for us to hire a city manager. And I think it was a realization that took a bit of time, but I'm glad we got there. And now we are the ones that are in charge of this city manager search process and not the other way around.
However, I believe at this week's commission meeting, it was decided that it was initially proposed that you would have a consulting firm recommend different search consultants that you could use, and it was decided that that would be done in-house.
Yes.
So are you comfortable with that?
I am.
Okay.
I am, because of the parameters of the way that's going to work, and we've put the responsibility in the hands of the charter officials, the city attorney, Joe Polzak, and the city auditor and clerk, Shayla Griggs. So they are the two that are sort of functioning as this interim until we get to a search firm. And we pick that firm, and we pick the process, we pick the qualifications. We are going to decide all of it, the five of us. So it will take longer. It will be much more of a detailed process, but I think it's an absolute necessity for us to do that at this point.
I know former city manager, Mr. Brown, who is now the director of government affairs for the Sarasota Chamber of Commerce, has been part of the process up till now, I believe. No, he's been not been involved?
No, none of the, what we had was we had a committee that we were going to form.
Yeah.
And this committee was, this was one of the first things that I had said, this is a very strange thing. So normally when we have volunteer committees, we either appoint people, individual commissioners do, or as a body we appoint people to the committee. And they serve in the sunshine. They are, they're ad hoc, or they're a permanent advisory board, and there are parameters and laws and rules around those. This was a committee that each commissioner would appoint one person to serve as their liaison, and this body would never meet together to discuss. So we would appoint somebody to interview the candidates, and they would report back to us. Again, another layer away from us actually doing our job. And the value of it to me would be the other committee members meeting and discussing openly with the community and with us. And that wasn't going to happen. And so Mr. Brown was appointed by one of the commissioners to that. We each had the opportunity to appoint one person, and he was appointed by one of them. I'm not even sure we're going to have that committee. And the committee was never convened. So.
The committee was never convened. No. Okay, well, that's good to hear.
Yeah, so.
It's been suggested, a little bit of talk around town, that Assistant Deputy City Manager Pat Robinson, excuse me, would be a great city manager candidate. I know that very early on he declined, but apparently part of the reason he declined was because it would affect his pension. Is there any? Number one, is he interested if that situation could be resolved, and could it be resolved?
It's my understanding that it would be very difficult to resolve it, but more importantly, he has said he is not interested in that role at this point in time in his life. Sometime in the future perhaps, but he has made it clear to us that he is not interested in that role right now. It's a very difficult job. It's a wonderful job, so I don't want to discourage anyone to do that. But it's a difficult job. You take a lot. And our city manager responds to citizens. Our city manager goes to neighborhood meetings. That's what we request of our city manager, and we want our citizens to have access to our city manager and to us. And since we can't direct staff by our charter, our city manager has to know the details of the pothole or the light or the tree or whatever the issue is. We have to know it, they have to know it. And they have to be willing to get their hands dirty and do that. And so that's why it's just a very difficult, time-consuming, 24/7 job.
Okay. So can you...
Not that he can't do it. I would
Right.
have full faith that if he were to, change his mind and apply for this job anytime for any city, including the city of Sarasota, he would make a wonderful city manager. But it has to be right for him in his life. So,
and my understanding is the interim city manager, Mr.
Absolutely.
Bullock, is not interested.
Not at
either.
all.
So can you give us some idea of what the process is going to be moving forward? What's the timeline? And then I'd be really interested to know if there is any intention to have any interaction between community members and maybe the final candidates.
Yeah, so I think the timeline's probably 6 to 8 months. 8 months probably is more realistic. The process will be, we're going to put together how we're going to select the, the firm, the verbiage for it. The last prospectus that they put out when they were looking for candidates, the firm put together something that made it look like that the city manager would be coming here for vacation. How beautiful Sarasota is and all the wonderful things to do and the beaches, and you're not going to see those beaches as the city manager. Like, it has to be realistic, and we are beautiful, we do have wonderful things to do, but that's not what you're coming here for. So we're going to be in charge of all of that. Hopefully people will put their applications in. We will go through every single solitary application, and then in public we will go through that whole process, which is why it's going to take a long time. What was the second part of the question?
I wondered if community members would
Yes.
have any opportunity to interact with the finalists.
Yeah, so that was something that we, in the last process, had discussed and changed, that was recommended to us, that there would be an opportunity, and not the opportunity where you have like high tops of the finalists and you kind of walk around and chit-chat with them. We wanted them on stage, taking questions, even if they couldn't answer it. How do you respond? How do you interact with the folks? We wanted to be able to see that, and so that was something that we had changed already in the last process. And I hope that will continue on, that there will be multiple opportunities.
And do you have any concerns about the fact of what appearance the search so far, which has not been gone very smoothly, might have on potential candidates? I mean, are
No.
there people who are going to say, I'm not going there, they don't know what they're doing?
No, I don't have any concerns about that. I mean, I don't think this commission is very different from other commissions. Again, we're citizens. There's, you don't get elected, and folks don't know this. You don't get elected, and then there's some big onboarding process, and you're elected. You swear in, you sign all your paperwork for insurance, and they show you your office, and they say, good luck. So we have to figure it out, and
It's all on-the-job training.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so, no, I mean, I don't think we're any different than any other commission that, maybe have started, got off on the wrong foot, realized their mistake, which is a good thing, and then restarted and committed to doing it properly. So, this commission, one thing I don't think we have are egos where we have to say, let's show who we are and pretend like we didn't make a mistake. I don't think any of us are egotistical like
That's
that,
good.
so. You got to say you're wrong when you're wrong.
Here's a great event that if we had a city manager, he wouldn't have the time to attend, or she. West Coast Black Theater Troupe is presenting its Juneteenth Arts Festival on Sunday, June 22nd, from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. at the theater campus at 1012 North Orange Avenue. The celebration features a concert with jazz saxophonist Dee Lucas, as well as theater performances, film screenings, art from local creators, health and wellness workshops, and food trucks. And you can get more information on that at westcoastblacktheater.org. We're back on Talk of the Town, and I'm your host, Carrie Seidman. We've been taking a deep dive into the Sarasota real estate market, efforts to mitigate flooding ahead of the hurricane season, and the search for a new city manager. We've been speaking with Dr. Shelton Weeks and Commissioners Mark Smith and Jen Ahearn-Koch. And now it's time for the entertainment part of our show, the Talk of the Town lightning round. This is where where we quiz our panelists on their knowledge of local current events and topics. And I encourage those of you in the audience and listening at home to play along as well. Although audience, please no hints for the panelists.
Please hints, please hints.
Here's how it works. Panelists, you see in front of you, you each have a bell. How this works is I will ask a brief question. As soon as you think you have the answer, hit your bell, and I'll ask for your answer. If you're right, you will hear this sound. If you are wrong, you will hear this sound. And the other panelists will then have an opportunity to give it a try. Audience, as I said, please no hints. We'll keep tabs on who's in the lead, and the guests with the most correct answers at the end of the lightning round will receive a prize of one of our coveted and exclusive Talk of the Town coffee cups.
Wow.
Panelists, are you ready? Hands on buzzers. Who recently entered the next Sarasota School Board race and will be running to fill the position being vacated by what high-profile board member?
Oh, go ahead.
Dr. Weeks.
Nick Saban.
Commissioner Smith.
That was my answer.
I can see her face, but it's a woman, right?
It is a woman.
And I can see her face.
All right.
Is it Nancy? I can't remember her name.
And what board member will she be running to replace the seat?
Bridget Ziegler.
Bridget Ziegler, correct. All right, we're going to give that one to Commissioner Koch.
Absolutely.
The woman's name is Heidi Brandt, by the way.
That's right.
What happened this past week at the Manatee County School Board without any advance warning? Commissioner Smith.
They fired their superintendent of schools.
Correct. On a 3-2 vote, the board fired Superintendent Dr. Jason Wysong without cause. The abrupt termination has brought about an investigation into potential sunshine law violations. All right, next question, panelists. What is the amount of money you can win by removing the most pythons from the Everglades during the season from July 11th to 20th? Commissioner Smith.
I think it's $1,000. No?
I
Anyone
think
else
it's
want?
$10,000.
Correct.
Oh, there you go.
Commissioner Ahearn-Koch is correct. Very good. Next question. Okay, this one is a multiple choice. How much in total did the owner of the Artisan Cheese Shop in the Rosemary District raise on crowdfunding platforms to save the pallets of demanding customers and her own shop? Commissioner Ahearn-Koch.
40,000.
Listen again. How much in total did the owner raise on crowdfunding platforms? You are correct that was the correct amount of her last fundraising.
Okay, so it's multiple
Okay,
choice.
so
Let's go.
here's your multiple choice. A, $1 million in one round, $95,000 in 3 rounds, or $42,000 in 2 rounds.
95.
Commissioner Koch is correct. Man, she's cleaning up. And
It's all the hints I'm getting.
And Commissioner Smith was the one who really did his homework on this. He was like all hot to trot before we started, right?
No, that was just that was the game face.
Oh, that was just a competitive thing. All right, next
just
question.
to intimidate my opponents.
How much?
It worked.
How much?
Apparently not enough. Move that bell.
How much did the opponents of the Obsidian skyscraper spend ahead of, this is multiple choice also, spend ahead of their victory? Number 1, nothing. Everything was pro bono. Number 2, $100,000 plus. Number 3, $1 million. Commissioner Smith.
B.
B, correct, $100,000 plus. Although that doesn't count any of the volunteer services they received, where there's a lot of lawyers that live in, retired lawyers that live in Bay Plaza next door. So that was helpful. All right, next question.
I'm staying out of that discussion. It's still alive, so.
All right, next question. What's the 2025 hurricane season forecast? Above normal, normal, below normal? I think
Above.
Yeah.
Correct. According to the National Hurricane Center, there'll be 13 to 19 named storms, 6 to 10 hurricanes, and 3 to 5 major hurricanes, making it an above normal season. Okay, another multiple choice. What's holding up the all-Republican Florida legislature and governor from passing a budget? A, Casey DeSantis' candidacy. B, tax cuts. C, insurance reform. Dr. Weeks.
C.
D.
Correct. Commissioner Koch, correct. Tax cuts. Okay, let's see. Do we have time for a little bit more lightning round? Yeah? All right. Oh, good. Can you get a ticket for walking along beaches that homeowners claim are private? Commissioner Smith.
Yes.
Yes. Florida residents can receive a steep fine and even jail time if they're found on private beach property in Florida. The mean high water line acts as the boundary between what's public and private, but a 2018 law made it harder for local governments to grant public access to portions of the dry land above the mean high water line. So keep your feet in the water and you should be safe. Next question. Can you be arrested for dumping trash in Sarasota? And if so, what is the penalty? Commissioner
Yes, you can
Ahearn-Koch.
be. Yes, you can be given a ticket, I believe, for dumping trash where you shouldn't be dumping it. And I don't know what the penalty is. I'll guess $50. No, maybe $1,000.
Quick revision.
I think you need to erase a couple of those.
Anyone else want to take a stab?
All right,
Commissioner Smith.
since I know there's no penalty. And this is- That really wasn't my answer.
Actually, the amount, it depends on the amount you dump. And it can range from a $150 fine to a first-degree misdemeanor or a third-degree felony. So pick up your trash. And our last question for this week's lightning round. Can drivers get a speeding ticket in school zones when the lights aren't flashing?
Yes.
Commissioner Ahearn-Koch, correct. Although the special speed limit that's enforced from an hour before school and an hour after school is much slower,
Yes.
you can still get a speeding ticket regardless if you drive above the posted speed limit. So that's it for this week's lightning round, and our winner is Commissioner Ahearn-Koch. And
Maybe I'll just keep the one I've been drinking out of.
she will be able to forevermore drink her morning coffee out of the coveted coffee cup crown. Thank all of my guests for this week, who will each receive, as soon as we receive them, because they haven't come in yet,
Hold it.
an exclusive Talk of the Town lapel pin, a collector's item.
Oh,
But in the meantime, they will receive a Talk of the Town lapel button.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not sure I can accept this because of the value.
Yes. Oh, that's true. That's true. It might not be ethical.
We don't accept gifts, so.
You might want to check on that.
I will.
Yeah.
Before I put it on.
It definitely is. It definitely is.
Just make
something
sure you
that's-
report it.
That's
I
right.
will. I have to now. Everybody sees it.
My computer just stopped working. That brings us to the close of this week's Talk of the Town, and we hope you'll tune in next week. I'm having a little computer issue. We hope you'll tune in next week when our guest will be former Sarasota City Mayor Molly Cardamone, sharing her thoughts on the debate over the new Sarasota Performing Arts Center and the fate of the Van Wezel Performing Arts Hall. We hope to have, we don't have this confirmed yet, former State Senator Jeff Brandes, who will be talking about what's been happening at the legislature. And we'll have citizen activist Nancy Parrish discussing the new college land grab and the thwarted takeover, we hope, of the Ringling Museum. And we'll be also discussing whatever next week's Talk Around Town might be. So before we sign off, we've asked our guests to predict next week's headlines, whatever they think the town will be talking about next week. And we've encouraged them to be irreverent and a little bit lighthearted in this. So just what will next week's Talk of the Town be? Dr. Weeks?
President Donald Trump issues executive order banning 2025 hurricane season in the Gulf of America.
Commissioner Smith.
Martians land on Siesta Beach. The Sarasota County, Visit Sarasota County reports that Martians landed on Siesta Beach, noting that they were told it was in the top 10 beaches in the galaxy. The Trump White House responded by putting a 100% tariff on Mars.
And Commissioner Ahearn-Koch.
Commissioner Mark Smith leads the charge to not hand the City of Sarasota back the stormwater system and commits to upgrading and increasing the water capacity of Sarasota County's stormwater.
You can be sure if those predictions come true, we'll be discussing them on next week's Talk of the Town. Thanks to the Gulf Coast Community Foundation for its support of Talk of the Town, to today's panelists, Dr. Shelton Weeks, Commissioner Mark Smith, and Commissioner Jen Ahearn-Koch, and to our wonderful Fogartyville audience. Give yourselves a hand. For the next 2 Saturdays, we'll be broadcasting from the WSLR studios, and then we'll be back with another live show here at Fogartyville on June 14th. So until then, this is your Talk of the Town host, Carrie Seidman, urging you to take care of each other and carry on.